Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of What the Field. I'm Emmeline.
And I am Roman. Today we'll be talking about the relationship between technology and agriculture. We are honoured to be joined by the founder and CEO of Auravant, Mr. Leandro Sabignoso. Leandro, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Emmeline, for having me. Thank you, Roman. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you.
So let us start by talking a bit about you. What do you do? Who are you?
Well, my name is Leandro. I'm an Argentinian. I'm from a small city called San Nicolas in Argentina, and I've been living here in Madrid for the last 2 years. As Roman said, I am the co-founder and CEO of Auravant. What we do at Auravant is we develop technology to help farmers make better decisions for a better production of food.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So, Leandro, for someone that doesn't know anything about Auravant, what is it that your company does? Because you mentioned technology, but that means so many things today.
Yeah, really. Specifically, what we do is we develop software, a GIS tool, which is a tool that uses different layers of data. Mm-hmm. For example, satellite imagery or drone imagery or other type of data that can be geo-referenced to a specific point in the field. And our software allows for the agronomists and the farmers to combine all of this data so they can determine exactly the optimal amount of input to use in each square meter of the field. And in that way, they can save inputs and at the same time have better yields and do a better agriculture with less impact for the environment.
So, Leandro, when you say input, what are you referring to exactly? Do you mean water input or other resources?
For example, it could be water or any other type of element that the farmer uses for their productivity, for the production activity, right? For example, seeds, fertilizers, any type of agrochemical, and water, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say is the degree of digitalization in agriculture compared to other industries?
So at this point, I believe that we are bridging the chasm that typically lies beneath the early adopters and the early majority, which typically is between 15 and 20% of adoption of any type of digital technology, right? Which is much less than many other industries, but at the same time, as this sector has been lagging behind in digital adoption, I think that it's catching up real fast, and this is going to grow really quickly from now on.
Mm-hmm. And Leandro, you've got the privilege of having customers all over the world.
Yep.
Would you say there's a strong difference, perhaps, what you see with farmers in Latin America or with farmers in Europe?
Totally. The crops are different. The way of how do we produce is completely different. For example, a farmer here in Spain that produces almonds has nothing to do with the soybean producer in Brazil. And we have both as customers and users. So our technology has to adapt to the means of production of each place. And also the economics are different, many things, and even the cultural, the way that they behave, it's completely different.
Yeah. That's a very interesting point you're touching, because I wanted to ask you a bit about the mindset and the culture of farmers, because from the crowd farming experience, we've sometimes talked to farmers and we propose perhaps a change in the way they should do things to, for example, cater to end consumers, and to them that is a novelty because they've been doing things a certain way sometimes for generations. Mm-hmm. Have you encountered the same sort of issue?
Totally. It's a challenge that all the startups and scale-ups and enterprises that are doing business in the sector face, because it's something that is going to change with the pass of time. It's not a change that it's going to happen from one day to another. Even newer generations have all of that cultural baggage that they carry from generation to generation. But at the same time, what we believe is that are the actors, the farmers, are the ones that are making the shift. Yeah. We are all enablers in that shift, and it's taking place because they see the benefits of adopting new technologies.
Yeah. So you don't have like a magic sentence that you tell to farmers, like this is going to, like to accelerate the shift. Perhaps it takes time to convince them.
Well, yes and no. It depends because it has changed in the last 5 years. We've been around our platform has been around for only 4 years.
Yep.
But the question that we encounter when we tackle the farmers used to be like 2 years ago. It used to be, why should I adopt this technology? And at this point, it's completely different. It's okay. I know that I have to adopt technology. Which one is the one that I better adopt if I want to keep doing this for the next 20 years? Because that's the way they think. They think in a sustainable way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Leandro, as someone who's been working in the agriculture industry, assuming you see a lot of what's going on, and through your technology, would you say that you have discovered anything that has shocked you?
Well, I mean, yes. In terms of the business, mainly.
Or also dealing with farmers, perhaps.
Yeah, well, there are many things that have shocked me as a person. I didn't mention at the beginning, but I don't come from the farming business. I'm an electronics engineer. I have an electronics background. Yeah. So I discovered everything. But once we released the platform, we kind of co-created it with the user, because we released it for free, then we turned into the freemium model for the end users. But we gathered a lot of feedback from our users, and we started co-creating it. And there were some discoveries, like, for example, we planned to have a platform that was only meant to be used for agriculture, and then people that were doing cattle farming, they were using it because they were watching through the satellite how the grass was growing, and they could estimate through our platform that, and then we began to develop some specific functionalities for that. And that happened with the end user, but other things that also, I wouldn't say shock us, but perform in a way that we didn't expect, were, for example, how other enterprises, small, medium businesses, and also corporations reach us because they thought they could improve or leverage their businesses through the use of platforms, like, for example, banks or insurance companies, that we didn't consider them in the very beginning, and right now they are customers.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that first call when you've got perhaps a bank asking you, Leandro, I want to, use your technology to hedge my risks, for example?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I didn't know you could do that, but that's actually a very good idea.
Well, you never know. As an entrepreneur, you never know. I didn't know that. You kind of act that, I have thought about that. And then you start developing how should I tackle this problem, right? But we knew from the very beginning that the data that the farmers hold on what is called ground truth, what is actually happening in each square meter of the field, which is an information that only the agronomists and the farmers had, because you cannot sense remotely every different variable, right? But they do know it because they walk the field and they take notes, and they know what they are doing. And that data holds a lot of value for example, people that want to hedge the risks, insurance company and banks, but also for food companies that want to have the complete traceability of their supply chain. So when we first started, we tried to do it humbly, really, by saying, okay, let's try to tackle this thing together. We reached an agreement with one very big bank, and we started developing some functionalities that helped them to achieve what they were planning through our platform. So we kind of make the same approach that with the end users. We try to co-create the newer functionality for corporates with our customers.
So a collaborative approach to product development.
Yeah, which typically yields a lot of value for the first customers, because those are the ones that then, when the technology adopts it massively, they are on the lead. And this is why some of these big companies have their own open innovations initiatives, right?
Understood. Leandro, I'd love to touch a bit on organic agriculture and the relationship between technology and organic agriculture. We've got many farmers that need some help transition into organic agriculture, and we try to provide a layer of financial support to them and advise them when they need to. And through your technology, do you think you can accelerate the shift towards organic agriculture?
Yes, totally. I see organic agriculture as, for example, precision agriculture,
Yeah.
as a set of techniques which as a whole constitute a technology, right? So precision agriculture and our platform, and maybe yours too, are technologies that are helping to perform this shift in the way that they produce. But yes, going specifically on how, for example, Auravant can help organic producers, as by knowing exactly what is happening in each square meter of their field, when the soil really needs a fertilizer, or when you cannot apply more of that particular type of input, as I mentioned before. It's much better for the organic use, because organic production has been lagging a little bit behind on yields.
Yep.
From traditional way
Yep.
of produce. But if you can combine that with a more efficient way of using the organic inputs, then you can reach the same level of yields, and at the same time have a much lesser impact on the environment, right?
So would you say that thanks to your technology, for example, if we applied it to all organically cultivated crops, organic agriculture could sort of win the race of yields?
Well, it will help for sure to the farmers to have a better economics of their farming, right? Of their farming business. And in the end, incentives are important for the farmer, because if they know that they can produce a better food by using less inputs, and at the same time having better return of their investment, then it's a no-brainer for them, so they can adopt. Something very similar has happened before with other techniques in, for example, in Argentina or in Brazil, where no-till farming has been widely adopted, which is one of the techniques of conservation or regenerative agriculture, and which is also very attached to our platform, right? Because if you don't do tilling, if you don't touch the soil, you allow it to recover, but at the same time you have to be very aware of where weeds are going to appear, and just apply the herbicide in the place where you have the weeds, instead of just throwing, which is much worse.
Okay. So I'm very interested in the satellite imagery that you mentioned earlier, and I was wondering, can you see the effects of climate change on the soil or on the planet through this imagery already?
Yes, you can see it year after year. As I mentioned before, Auravant has been around only for 4 years, but our images go back to 15 years ago, right? Some kinds by 10 years, and some others by 15 years ago. So you can see in places where the farmers have been performing better techniques of farming, how the yields year after years continue to improve. And that's, even though you cannot measure, for example, directly the carbonic matter that you have in the soil, but it's an indirect measure that they are doing the good things. And at the same time, for example, we do have a complete record of how much fertilizers each of them has applied in the last N years, because even though the platform has been only for 4 years, they load the
you can track it for each of the producers.
So we do track the correlation between those two variables, right?
Yeah, and further on that question, what do you think you can do to help in the fight against climate change? Because do you actively advise your customers, like, for example, some of your competitors are using fewer pesticides and are obtaining better yields, or do you talk to public entities saying, we've seen an increase in the use of pesticides in this region, we feel you should do something about it, perhaps?
We are starting to do that right away, right now. Our platform is currently managing more than 9 million hectares in 70 countries. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
But our first focus was to secure the data and make sure to commit with our users that we won't use their data for other means that won't be to improve our platform and the value we provide to them. So right now what we are starting to do is to see aggregated data and to feed it back to the same users. So for example, they can see how the rest of their neighbors, aggregated neighbors, are performing in yields, the amount of fertilizers that they are using, and I think that is really good for conversions, right?
Yeah.
Because if someone is doing things good, then if you allow it to community to
the rest.
You allow them to leapfrog or to catch up faster, right? So those are where we are, the points where we are aiming.
But you are basically saying that for now, maybe the problem, let's say, with this is that it is not necessarily your client's main interest, right?
I mean,
the whole climate change and maybe reversal of desertification, all of what is implied regarding to climate change, probably it's not at the top list of the priorities. For the moment, it's more about increasing the yields.
Depending on, sorry to interrupt, but it depends on which is the customer that you're talking about. We, as I mentioned, we have both the farmers and the big corporations as customers. And sometimes in these specific matters, it is the enterprise or are the enterprises that are that have the means to put in place some politics or businesses that help to reduce contamination or pollution. So, for example, we do have some big customers that ensure that the farmers from whom they buy or to whom they sell their inputs or their food do things right. So it is not the farmer. The farmer is, of course, interested in preserving their soil because they think in that way. We sometimes think that the farmer doesn't care, but they do care because it's their field. They have to have it for the rest of their life and their sons and their grandsons. But then they don't have the incentives in the right place because they have to survive. I mean, they have to be profitable, right? But then the companies, when they do have the investment put in place, they can ensure that these farmers are doing things right by providing different incentives. And we do have more and more of these big enterprises using Auravant to ensure that the farmers are doing this type of sustainable farming.
Okay, that's interesting. Any follow-up questions, partner?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I think that was very clear and concise.
Would you say that technology can solve all of agriculture's problems?
That's a tricky question for a technologist because I'm tempted to say yes, but no. I think technology, as I mentioned before, is a tool, and there are other tools that have to be in place. And all of these tools, like, for example, a clear a law that foster the right usage of the soil or the reduction of pollution, all of these are different instruments that in the end will only be in place if the people want to make the shift. So we are enablers. Technology is not good nor bad. It can solve things, and together, like for example, crowd farming and Auravant put together, we can help farmers and the whole sector to improve faster, but the willingness to improve has to come from within. Luckily, at least from my perspective, I'm a very optimistic person. I see that right now they are pushing it, and the change is coming very quickly, right?
Yeah, I would say we can definitely agree that the most important thing is also changing people's mindsets. And after all, when it comes to climate change, for example, I mean, maybe you're aware of this discussion going on of people saying, on the one hand, there's all these startups providing all these technology solutions, which then prompts politicians to maybe say, oh, we don't need to change our behavior. Look, we have the technology to prevent or at least slow down climate change, because obviously it's already happening. And on the other hand, there's people saying, no, the real root cause is people's behavior and people's overconsumption maybe, which then leads to, using too much resources and too quickly.
Well, in that sense, yes, I'm more towards the adoption of technology. I don't believe that we should go back in time. I mean, of course, rational consumption, yes, for sure. Yeah, I'm with it. But I'm more prone to invest in technology because I think that technology is what brought us here, and I think the only way to improve us as a society is to continue developing technology that help us get there, whatever is that we want to get, right?
Yes.
But it seems that population is going to continue increasing at a fast rate. and in particularly in developing countries. And we have to cope with that. And the only way to cope with that is with the massive adoption of better and better technologies. At the same time, regulations have to be in place. But as I mentioned before, for example, the common agrarian politic here is changing right now.
Yep.
And it's changing to foster better techniques and better agriculture. And this is, I mean, I see that it should be quicker, faster, but at least it's moving that way.
Yeah. It's very difficult on the CAP, for example, because it should be faster indeed, but not all the farmers have the ability to adapt as quickly as perhaps the environment requires to, or from a social perspective is also very, very complicated. And I do have a follow-up question.
Yes.
What do you think the biggest change in agriculture is going to be in the next 10 years?
Well,
Another difficult question.
that is a real difficult question.
Well, you've got a privileged position, you've got customers all over the world, so I think you're more than qualified to answer it.
I see a convergence, as I mentioned before, but I also see robotization, for example, as one of the main trends, and it's going to be much, I mean, robotization combined with AI, for example.
Yep.
I can imagine in the next, I don't know, maybe less than 10 years, in the next 5 years, you go in and see many more drones operating automatically, and I'm not talking only about flying drones, but different type of other drones like terrestrial.
So we will have an army of drones working in the fields.
With AI, which is
That's
not
very
sure
scary.
I like that
Frightening.
image, yeah. But do you think, for example, I'm going to do another follow-up questions, not totally related to this, but do you think this could help with major issues such as the water scarcity? That thanks to, because you are, as you said, you're measuring input, so could this really help? Because Spain, as we keep saying, has or the south of Europe, or increasingly a lot of countries have a problem with water, with at least drinking water. So do you think this could I don't know, help us have less pressure with this water issue? Yeah,
and likely it's not only me. There are many others concerns about that. For example, our main investor in the previous investment round was GoHub, which is a company that it's part of Global Omnium, a utility of water, and they invested in us just because we can help the farmers to save a lot of water and at the same time continue to produce a lot. But what I was mentioning about robotization, it's very important because right now one of the main barriers for adoption of precision or digital agriculture, it's the last part, the last mile, what acts, right? Which is typically the machine. And the machine is something that is the irrigator machine or the harvester. All of those are very big machines that then you have to combine all of the knowledge that you have in your perfect digital environment to the things that happens in the field, which everything is dirty, it's bigger, and it typically fails. So that is one thing that is changing. It's going to continue changing very quickly, and then will allow for all of these improvements, exponential improvements, to reach the field.
Okay.
Leandro, I think we could continue with this conversation for hours, but unfortunately we're running out of time.
No time to get into the robot situation. maybe in the future,
Very
right?
much
because
like the Terminator,
it's scarily fascinating.
the agricultural wars, But in any case, Leandro, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here with us today. I've learned so much in this very short chat that we've had, and I really hope we can do a follow-up exercise at some point, even if it's off camera. I love that.
The field robots or something.
Talk about robots
For
more
sure,
in depth.
for sure we are very close, our offices are very close, so we will continue to see each other, and thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, thank you to our listeners for being with us for another episode, and also to our viewers.
We hope you enjoyed this little field trip to the world of the digitalization of agriculture. Until next time, bye.
Bye.